Welcome everybody. We're just opened up the waiting room, so we'll just give a few minutes to let people come in before we get started. Just for those of you who have joined us, if you have any questions at all, comments, then please do use the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to as many questions as we can at the end of the presentations. We've still got people coming in, so I'll just wait a few more seconds before we start. Well, welcome everybody. Good afternoon. Good morning to our colleagues in Central America who will be joining us for this event. My name's Patricia Alexander. I'm the Managing Director of Shared Interest. And welcome again to our fourth event that we've been running during Fair Trade Fortnight. Today we're going to Central America. Our office in Costa Rica was opened in 2006. It was the first of the regional offices that we did open, and the office now covers Central and North America. And today we're going to be joined by Marco, our lending manager, and Carolina, and also Joel from CAFESCORE. So I'm going to hand over now to my colleague Marco in Costa Rica. And please remember to enter any questions or comments you've got in the Q&A box at the bottom. Thanks. Over to you, Marco.
Thank you, Patricia. Good afternoon and good morning to everybody. As Patricia mentioned, we'll give you today a brief presentation of the experience of climate change mitigation in my region, Central America. So let's begin. Well, this first slide is intended to communicate how complex climate change relationship and impact is when related to managing a farm or living in rurality. Basically, climate change create all sorts of extreme events that impact in many ways in the farms. When dealing with water, climate change can increase the number of storms, unexpected rains in seasons where it's supposed to be drier, of course, creating floods and landslides. When dealing with the absence of water, it can create droughts, desertification, as is happening right now in large parts of the Pacific regions of Central America. That's the impact on the environment, and of course, soil erosion in many areas, especially in rural areas. And in relation to the impacts to a farm, it can increase the number of pests, the number of diseases, reduce the fertility of soils, which is quite critical, also reduce the quality and the volume of the production of the farms. It can reduce biodiversity and, of course, availability of water. All those specific impacts on a farm, can increase the cost of operating a farm, demand more technical knowledge of these farmers to cope with all these changes, and especially in rural areas where agriculture is the main source of income. When climate change impact dramatically, it increases the unemployment, and specifically in Central America, it triggers migration to the United States with all the problems related to that process. So as you can see, it's a very complex problem that demands, of course, all sort of solutions. So we have picked today the experience of the coffee rust, which is a common plague in the coffee farms, and all the issues and lessons learned. So what is coffee rust? It's basically a fungi that creates a leg in the coffee farms. As you can see in the picture, it is manifested in those rusty stains in the leaf of the coffee trees. And it occurs at a specific temperature range between 16 and 20 degrees Celsius. And when it's a low luminosity, it spreads with the raindrops. And the major problems is that it reduces the quality and the volume of the coffee production. So what has happened in the region? Basically, during 2013, there was an unexpected weather phenomena called La Niña that created strong rains, but also increased the coverage of clouds during the year, allowing that specific temperature range to remain more stable throughout the year. Of course, it increased the number of drop splashes due to the rain, and it of course created the perfect conditions for the coffee rust to spread. But in addition, we were having a couple of years of low coffee prices that reduced farmers' income, their capacity to keep their farms, and of course the trees were weaker. So all these elements created a sadly perfect storm that helped this plague to propagate. So were the solutions implemented during those years? Basically, the most important activity was to gather technical knowledge on how to cope with this plague. And after this knowledge, so three main actions were aimed to renovate farms. Those coffee trees need to be, all coffee trees need to be renovated, and we'll see later on use different varieties. Also improve the farm's maintenance, and as a preventive component of the solution, to monitor all those weather changes that may trigger again this plague. So let's go and into the farm's renovation activity. So basically, from the previous experience in Colombia, there were identified different coffee species, coffee varietals that were more resilient to this plague, but not all those varietals could work in all the different regions depending on the type of soil, type of weather. Some varietals will work better than others. Some of those resilient varietals will not work at all. So it required also a lot of research on each country and each region to identify those varietals that could work. And also never, taking away from that approach, the quality would not be affected, because coffee produced in Central America is considered a specialty, and all those elements must be considered. And also share interests develop a special financial product specifically aimed to help these farmers to renovate their farms. We have also we did some research in order to identify all those plan and elements that need to be included in this application request. And it definitely helped many coffee organizations during these years. In relation to the improvement of the farm's upkeep or maintenance, basically producers learned that they need to be quite disciplined keeping their farms, and not only when perhaps seasons with good prices help them afford that. So they have to be not only disciplined, but also bring more natural elements, the maintenance of the farms. Using natural supplies definitely improve the sustainability of the farms, the quality of their soils in the long term, rather than for specific periods. Many coffee organizations build their own lands to produce organic fertilizers and some other organic supplies. And also there was more knowledge share of other organic supplies produced by third parties that could be used in different stages of the process. And regarding weather monitoring, different preventive systems were implemented on the coffee farms. Basically, relationships were defined between abrupt weather changes and the containment actions that need to be implemented on the farms. Some cooperatives related, with weather information that was available country-wise. with their actions, some other cooperatives developed more sophisticated solutions, and they implemented their own weather stations in the farms. As you can see in the picture on the left, yeah, this is a weather station in one of our customer farms, Capucas in Honduras. And that is of course includes a technological component that is quite helpful for these farmers. And thank you. That was the general presentation of a case of climate adaptation in Central America. Now we'll continue with the video and a presentation related to a specific case of a customer in Honduras, a coffee cooperative called Café Score. So I'll show you first an introduction video.
Marco, we have no sound.
Okay, let me see if I can do something. Let me turn off my headphones, perhaps it's because of that.
La preparación de exportación. Desde 2012, Café Score es una asociación de pequeños productores de café. Actualmente contamos con 440 socios, de los cuales 84 son mujeres y 356 hombres. Nos caracterizamos por desarrollar prácticas agrícolas, tomando en cuenta puntos de control desde la planta hasta la preparación de exportación. En nuestra planta de residuos producimos abonos orgánicos, sólidos y líquidos para aplicarlos en las fincas de los productores socios. En nuestra unidad de café especiales procesamos microlotes que son seleccionados por un mercado selectivo. Nuestro control de calidad ha sido el éxito, pues acá nos tomamos muy en serio cada detalle en cada café que entra y sale en nuestras plantas de procesamiento. En el 2018 obtuvimos la licencia de exportación y la instalación de nuestra planta de exportación, accediendo rápidamente al mercado directo.
Well, thank you. And now I will give a specific presentation of Café Score related to climate change adaptation. Let's begin with this one. So basically, this slide shows the climate change adaptation model that has been implemented in this coffee cooperative. Basically, it turns around three main elements. It's sustainable management of the coffee farms and integrate the conservation and the restoration of the environment within their activities. These three elements bring ecosystem services or benefits from the environment that helps them achieve the adaptation that works for them, that have been implemented since the inception of the cooperative. So first of all, I'll show you specific problems that have affected Café Score farms and producers related to climate change. So as you can imagine, coffee rust has definitely been one of those problems. The outbreak that they experienced was also during those critical years in the region from 2012 to 2014, where the fungus spread, as you can see in the pictures. The leaf shows clearly all those rusty stains. The incidence was quite high in their farms, not totally, since a couple of varietals were not affected, but the incidence was present in all the farms, which affected all their farmers. Another issue that they have experienced related to climate change is related to broca, or these insects, the coffee berry borer, which appears in the coffee beans when the beans are, or the grains are ripe and remain in the tree, or when they're rotting grains in the ground for a specific period of time. This issue was more complicated during the years of 2012 to 2015, also related to perhaps a low income for farmers that somehow led to a decrease in the quality of the maintenance of the upkeep provided to the farms. Another issue that is quite, I guess, specific for the Central American region is the landslides. As you may know, the Caribbean, Central America, and even some parts of North America, it's affected yearly by hurricanes during the hurricane season that extends from even sometimes May up to November. Yeah, and particularly in November 2020, 2 hurricanes passed to the region and to Honduras, basically one after the other, which created a lot of impact in the mountainous area. As you can see in the pictures, significant landslides affected the coffee farms. About 120 producers of Cafescore were affected, which represent about 5% of the membership. And it not also affected some farms, but also damaged roads that connects these farms with production facilities and with the community centers. So it was quite problematic and unique. For instance, in 2020, it was a record number of hurricanes that passed through our region. Were nine hurricanes. So it's a clear sign of climate change. And now let's see the adaptations that were implemented by Cafescore. As you can see, technical knowledge is key to tackle all these challenges related to climate change, and they did provide extensive training and raised awareness not only to the coffee farmers but also to nearby schools in their communities. They increased the number of agricultural technicians from 2 back in 2014 up to 5 as of now. And this training covered all sorts of topics, from the specific upkeep of the coffee trees, how to manage all the environmental elements, water, how to manage shadows of the trees. So it was quite extensive, even how to cover over elements like diversification that I'll show you later on. So nurseries was quite important, not only to have nurseries for those coffee varietals that were able to resist in a better capacity the plagues and the diseases, but also nurseries for forest and timber trees that can, of course, increase the biodiversity of the farms, but also timber trees that can generate another income for these coffee farmers, of course, managing this timber production in a sustainable way. A couple of pictures of how they manage these nurseries. Reforestation was also key, in order to bring all those environmental eco-services or benefits from the environment. Significant alliances were held with government institutions, schools, and even coffee buyers. Native trees give a significant benefit to the coffee farms, not only because they prevent landslides, but they increase the biodiversity, help increase the fertility of the soils, provide shade. And you can see here on the first picture, a group of cooperative staff members and producers doing reforestations the 30th of May, the International Coffee Tree Day. And in the other picture, high school students of communities. This is quite important, not only to bring awareness of the generations, but also to somehow invite them to eventually participate in the coffee activities in the future. So it's an interesting activity. Also, as you saw in the previous presentation, developing having organic fertilizers and organic supplies is quite important. CafeScore built their own organic fertilizer plant back in 2016. And they produce foliar sprays, biological insecticides, and of course fertilizers. As you can see, they work with different worms to increase the quality of the soil and the supplies that are used in different stages of the production. Also, natural barriers were implemented, either live barriers with trees or the barriers with rocks. Those barriers help reduce soil erosion, but also prevent the contamination from farms from external parties that may not carry the best practices, or they just have another activity that may affect the coffee activity. And the selection of these barriers depends on the farmer's availability of sources and materials. That is to look for a low cost but effective solution. And also diversification to offset the economic impacts of climate change. When production eventually a year is not that good, it's important to have a second source of income, and the cultivation of fruits and vegetables was identified as a convenient solution, producing tomato, oranges, cucumber, and depending on the size of the farm, it could be help or used for self-consumption, or for larger farms to commercialize and trade in the nearby communities. CafeScore also went a little bit further and implemented solar cells to produce in a cheaper way energy that they need in different parts of the process. They build solar panels over the facility where the final classification of the coffee is performed, and has been recently used this coffee cycle that we are going on from 2021 to 2022, that started around December and will finish about June, and it's letting them generate 169 kilowatts with allow them to operate this equipment during the day. This is quite innovative for a coffee cooperative in the region. And that's it. Thank you very much. And now we'll start the question and answer session.
Thank you, Marco. That's great. If Carolina, your colleague, and also Joel from CafeScore could put their cameras on, that would be great while we take the Q&As. Just a reminder, please put your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom. It's lovely to have Joel with us. Marco will be translating your questions and answers on our behalf. So let's start with the first question. And can we get Joel there, Marco?
Thank you, Patricia. Joel, si quieres puedes activar la cámara para que te vea. Muchas gracias.
Thanks, Marco.
As Patricia mentioned, Joel is CafeScore president and will join us. So let's go to the first question.
Okay, so the first question is, what did you do when the new Roya variety attacked and was resistant against the new variety?
Bueno, aquí preguntan cuando inició el brote de la roya, ¿cómo impactó, digamos, en las resistencias Catimor o Lempira, que tienden a ser más resistentes? ¿Qué experiencia tuvieron ustedes con esas variedades durante el brote de la roya?
Pues, bueno, muy buenos días a todos. Pues precisamente en ese momento fue donde descubrimos que la variedad de café 90 y Lempira eran resistentes a la roya. Antes de que se viniera este hongos, pues creíamos que ya escuchábamos de la enfermedad en otros países, pero acá en Honduras no lo habíamos vivido. Cuando viene la afectación por roya, entonces identificamos que las variedades vulnerables eran el Caturra, Catuahí, Borbón, entre otras, y que las únicas resistentes eran y Café 90 y Lempira.
Gracias. Yes, they knew, have certain knowledge prior to the Roya outbreak that some varietals like Café 90 and Lempira were resilient, but they didn't know how low resilient were the other varietals that were mostly affected. So yeah, they did have the previous knowledge, but also was reinforced after they have to deal with their own Roya issue or outbreak issue.
Thank you, Marco. So next question is, how does the handling of the coffee cause the borer beetle? Maybe Abby, you can answer that, or you can ask Joel to answer it.
Yeah, I think I can answer this one. Yes, basically it is related with the mature and rotten coffee beans, either remaining on the tree or in the floor. So having a quick clean of the rows of the farms, removing all those grains that fail is quite important, and also not only picking harvesting the trees in the right moment and not just leaving some trees unpicked is also a convenient practice.
Thanks, Marco. And so from your experience, what coffee varietals are more resistant to coffee rust?
Well, it's quite different. It depends on the region and the altitude of the coffee farm, the quality of the soil. But I think it would be quite an interesting question for Joel. So let me ask him. Joel, preguntan que en caso de Café Score, ¿cuál es la variedad que ha resultado más resistente para la roya en caso de ustedes?
Pues para comentarle un poco, en ese momento creíamos que el Café 90 o el Empira eran los más resistentes a la roya, pero ya en el 2015 pues hasta esas variedades empezaron a afectarse, pero ya venían plantaciones nuevas como el Parainema, el Lóbata y Catú, que hasta ahorita pues son las variedades que realmente han resistido a la afectación de roya. Más sin embargo, la mejor variedad, creemos, por ser muy bueno en taza, en perfil de taza y resistente a la roya, pues es el Parainema. Para nosotros es la mejor variedad en calidad y en resistencia por ahorita.
Perfecto, muchas gracias. Yes, Samuel mentions that previous to the attack, they thought the varietals of Café 90 and Lempira were the more resilient. Then they noticed that there were more resilient varietals like Parainema and Icatú, but they specifically have a work around Parainema, which not only provides good resilience, but also good quality profit. So that has helped them significantly.
Thank you. So from the presentation, the farms seem to be very large, cover a large area. What is the position of the women in your region? Do they actually own the farms, or are they working on someone else's farms?
Well, preguntan viendo la presentación que las fincas se ven un poco grandes. En relación con las socias de Café Score, ellas tienen sus propias fincas. Hay algunas que tal vez alquilen fincas o es una esquema mixta.
No, las socias productoras casi todas tienen sus parcelas de fincas. Claro, el esposo también tiene, ¿verdad? La familia tiene, pero ellas como sí también tienen sus parcelas individuales. Incluso tenemos un volumen de 15 contenedores, que es un café certificado, que el certificado se llama Café con Manos de Mujer, ¿verdad? Que además también cuenta con las demás certificaciones como Comercio Justo, Orgánico, Rainforest, con todas las certificaciones que Café Score cuenta en la actualidad.
Perfecto, gracias. Yes, Joel mentions that there are women members of the cooperative that have their own coffee farms. Most of them have their own coffee farms. Even when there's a wife and husband. The wife may have in a specific farm, or the husband has another coffee farm of their own. So it works like that. And about 15 containers they produce yearly that comes from farms exclusively and managed by women, and that has been an interesting part of the business they have developed, which provides also improve the gender equality programs.
Thank you. Maybe Carolina, you can answer this question. It's about how we share information. Several of our attendees today have been here for our other events, and so they've seen lots of presentations from around the world, and they're asking, how do we share knowledge between the regions of the world? So how do you share information about coffee rust and various other issues with your colleagues around shared interest?
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Well, we have in Shared Interest monthly updates, and in these monthly updates, we share all what is happening in the region related to the coffee business, honey business, and all the business that are developed in the region. Also about the political situation in the country. We share everything we think is important and that will help other regions to have knowledge and to learn from the lessons and experiences from our customers. And we also have a close communication. We really appreciate the support and the knowledge that each one of the customer representative has gained through all these years with Shared Interest. So we have a close communication with them through our chat, WhatsApp. If I have any question about another producer, I can ask them. And we also participate in the CSAF meetings. So in the CSAF meetings with colleagues also from other lenders, we learn from what is happening in other countries and the experiences they have with their producers, because some producers have credits or short-term credits with us and also with another lenders. So we try to have a close communication with them and share all the experiences that we think will help us to work together and to have a better impact in our business. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. Just for those that don't know who CSAF is, it's the Council of Smallholder Agricultural Finance Organisations, and Shared Interest was a founder member of that group, along with a lot of other social lenders such as Root Capital, Responsibility, Altafin, and all of Oiko Credit and others that work in the same environment with the smallholder farmers that Shared Interest does. Marco, maybe you could answer this one then. There's a question of sort of where do farmers get the majority of their funding from, but I guess there's also members would be interested in what sort of requests we get and whether we get requests to finance particular climate adaptation or mitigation projects, seeing as how that's the sort of focus of our event today.
Yes, well, in relation to coffee farmers, most of the finance come from social lenders. There have been some countries where local banks have gradually increased the participation, but it's mostly provided by social lenders like Shared Interest. And regarding lending for climate change mitigation initiatives, yes, it's provided also by many NGOs, foundations like we have foundations of other social lenders. So it's quite a varied mix of funding, but it's I guess it's mostly from non-government institutions. Although in countries like Honduras, the government is quite active financing infrastructure and some elements in the coffee activity, which is quite important for their GDP and of course for the well-being of the rural communities.
Thanks, Marco. So maybe you could ask Joel what is the biggest challenge that his organisation is facing at the moment, and what sort of support potentially could organisations like Shared Interest give to them.
Thank you. Joel, sí, que preguntan que cuál puede ser el principal reto que tiene Cafescore en general, no solo en relación con cambio climático, el principal reto que tiene Cafescore y qué tipo de ayuda podrían recibir, o ser importante recibir de parte de organizaciones como las nuestras.
Marco, el principal que, disculpe, no escuché bien.
El principal reto, digamos, o el problema que tienen que afrontar ustedes como organización.
Bueno, el principal reto ha sido, bueno, desde que fundamos Cafescore, ya sabíamos del cambio climático, ya sabíamos de las consecuencias que iba a traer el cambio climático y realmente lo que se está viviendo, ¿verdad? Pero lo hemos ido combatiendo con el paso del tiempo, incorporando plantas en algunas zonas de unas parcelas productivas, protección de fuentes de agua, recolección de basura en las parcelas, bueno, capacitaciones, tantas cosas que hemos hecho. Entonces, creo que en eso pues vamos trabajando y vamos trabajando bien. Ahorita el principal reto creo que es detener la emigración a Estados Unidos de los jóvenes. Entonces, como Cafescore hemos tomado la iniciativa actualmente, un enfoque principal que es en el relevo generacional, presentar opciones al joven para que no tome la decisión de irse para Estados Unidos. Claro, volviéndolo sostenible en la producción de café, capacitándolo en la producción de café, en la producción ecológica. En ese ámbito pues atacamos dos problemas, el cambio climático y la inmigración hacia otros países. Ese creo que es nuestro principal reto actualmente y también estamos trabajando en el relevo generacional. Son cosas muy, muy importantes, el empoderamiento de la mujer, ¿verdad? En los temas productivos y en la toma de decisiones. Creo que son nuestros principales retos en la actualidad.
Perfecto, muchas gracias. You all mentioned that yes, as you saw, climate change brings a lot of challenges, but the main challenge right now is the immigration to the U.S., which is part climate immigration, but also immigration caused by social conditions and safety in Honduras. So they have been working quite hard to bring this generational change, to motivate youngsters to be part of the cooperative and teach them, also the importance of the environment, so that there'll be some sort of a global solution that attacks the main challenges in climate change, in gender equality, but mainly to avoid reduce immigration.
Thank you, Marco. Just one final question, and I have to confess I don't know anything about Plan Nescafe, so maybe you don't either. But the question says, do you have projects with a Robusta, like in Mexico, with Plan Nescafe? I confess I don't know anything about that, so maybe you don't either, but can you answer that?
Yes. Well, not so far. Currently, our coffee customers in Mexico do not deal with Robusta varietals or provide coffee to those Nescafe because business chains. In the past, we did finance a customer that had Arabica variety, which is the top quality variety, which is more demanded in the specialty coffee sector, which is mainly our sector. But this coffee organization in Mexico also have some Robusta farms in the past, and they did sold coffee to these chains, even for instant coffee, although it was a small portion of their business. But we haven't had that experience ever since we closed this facility almost about 5 years ago. So I don't know much of the current state of that supply chain.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And I think that really brings us to the end of our session today. Big thank you to Marco and Carolina, and to Joe from CAFESCO for joining us. Thank you to all of you for joining us. We have one more event on Monday where we will be going to our colleagues in South America. So thank you and bye for now.
Muchas gracias, Joel. Hasta luego.